DSLRs are great for video until you go outside. Well, they're still great, you just can't see it because usually you can't use the viewfinder on a camera in movie mode and the screens are just too dim and reflective to be usable in sunlight. The solution is to buy a viewfinder that's designed to go over the screen. Now, DSLR accessories tend to be very expensive and viewfinders are no exception. This one though, this was £10. You can spend upwards of £400 on a viewfinder for a DSLR, so for £10 my hopes are not very high, but I thought it was definitely worth giving this a chance. It comes in a box that has instructions on the side, but the instructions are not for this product. It doesn't seem to have a brand either. You can find this on Amazon by searching for LCD V3 viewfinder. It has on this side of the box some other models. They apparently have a V1, V2, 4, 5 and 6 as well, which fit other cameras. This one claims to fit the Canon 600D or T3i and the 60D. Now it feels very cheap when you get it out of the box, but I guess that's okay because it is very cheap. Now unfortunately I can't really test this properly here because, well, indoors I don't need it, I can see the screen anyway. And even outdoors it's quite dull and cloudy. So I've come to Turkey to see what it's really like. I've been using it for a few days and it's really not that bad. As I already mentioned, it feels very cheap, but that hasn't been a deal breaker. It attaches to the camera using a magnet. You take this piece and you screw it onto the bottom of the camera. And this adds a metal frame around the screen. This makes it really easy to put the viewfinder on and off, and this is better than some of the alternatives because it doesn't leave anything behind on the camera, and you can put the viewfinder on either way so you can use it with either eye. This metal frame has a thread on the bottom so you can still mount the camera on a tripod. It will prevent the use of a battery grip though, or any other accessory which needs to touch the bottom of the camera. You can still access the battery compartment without taking anything off. You might have some concerns about putting a magnet so close to the camera. I share those concerns, but I think only the viewfinder has a magnet in, not the metal frame which sits around the screen. So as long as you don't leave it on for an extended period of time, it should be okay. One point to raise here is that the magnet never totally touches the screen because it leaves a small gap. Now the metal frame is actually adjustable. It'll move forwards and backwards a little bit to accommodate cameras with slightly different depths. But you still get a problem where the frame doesn't actually touch the screen. It seems like the corner of it is not quite at 90 degrees, so the top is further away from the bottom and you get a bit of movement there. Now this causes a couple of problems. Firstly, it lets some light in. Not a lot, but enough to diminish the effects of the viewfinder. It's still better than not having it on at all, but it's far from perfect. And secondly, you get a very slightly warped image because it's not straight, it's not parallel with the screen. But I think this is also due to the cheap glass inside of the viewfinder. This is noticeable at the edges of the image, it's all just a tiny little bit warped. Speaking of the glass inside of the viewfinder, it provides magnification. 2.8 times magnification according to the Amazon description, and I have no reason to disbelieve that. Magnification is good because it really helps you to get the focus right. I found that 2.8 times is a little too much for my liking because I can't quite see the whole screen without having to look around a little bit inside of the viewfinder. This is not a huge problem, but it just makes it a little bit harder to frame and compose shots. Also remember that while you're magnifying the screen, you're not increasing the number of pixels, so you lose the sharp, crisp quality that the image has when you look at the screen directly. This will be the same with any viewfinder like this though. A few more features missing from our cheap little viewfinder include a diopter, which means if your eyesight is not perfect, there's no way to adjust the lens in here to accommodate for that. Protective covers to protect the lens inside, but at £10 I don't think that's going to be your primary concern. And finally, I'd have liked to see some sort of attachment like this on the viewfinder so I could attach it to the camera or hang it around my neck, but there's nothing, the sides are just smooth. So is it worth buying this for £10? Yes, it does the job. It provides magnification for the screen and it increases the visibility in bright light. I've been able to get some really nice shots here in Turkey in direct sunlight which would have otherwise been impossible. It's not perfect and it has some missing features, but it is significantly cheaper than the competition, and if, like me, you have an entry-level DSLR and you're mainly shooting video just for fun, I really don't think it's worth spending as much on a viewfinder as you did on the camera. And finally, I accidentally dropped this yesterday. It didn't suffer any damage, but if it had, I would have been really glad that I chose the cheap option. Since it's just a magnet, it can come off quite easily, so that's something to bear in mind. Again, this is the V3 LCD viewfinder, or LCD V3, I really don't know. Either way, I'd recommend it to anyone who has a DSLR who uses it to shoot video. Thanks for watching.